I once sat inside a classified war room and gave the order to intercept an unidentified aerial object threatening U.S. airspace, but nothing prepared me for the missile aimed straight at my marriage. My name is Mark Westbrook. I'm 45 years old, a major in the United States Air Force, stationed at Peterson Space Force Base, home of NORAD and US Northcom, where sleepless nights decide the safety of an entire continent. I don't break easily. I've weathered Arctic deployment drills, cyber warfare simulations, and missile interception exercises that lasted days without pause. I understand discipline. I understand duty. I understand what it means to sacrifice personal life for national security. Sarah, my wife, understood that too. She met me at a coffee shop the day I finished officer training. I bought her a lukewarm espresso, and she smiled. Kept the cup for years like it meant something. We started from scratch, a beat-up apartment, a rusty pickup, cheap dinners, and a shared dream of building a life together. I thought I had chosen right. A quiet, resilient woman who stood behind her military husband. A woman I believed would never walk away, no matter what. I was wrong. Dead wrong. That afternoon, I came home from Alaska, a 32-day emergency training mission. Ice still clung to my boots. My shoulders ached from the gear. All I wanted was a warm drink, an embrace from behind, and Sarah's familiar voice asking, "Rough trip?" But the house I came home to wasn't a home anymore. Our wedding photo, gone. The kitchen, stripped bare. Her handmade crafts, which once filled the walls with warmth, vanished. Even the ugly rug I always hated but kept because Sarah loves it, was nowhere to be found. Only one thing remained on the wooden table, a white envelope. No note, no goodbye, just 3 documents. A bank statement showing all joint accounts, emptied. A deed of sale for our house and vehicles, no signature from me. And a divorce petition, already signed. At the bottom, in her handwriting, a single line. "Mark, I need a different life. You'll understand someday." I didn't understand. I only knew one thing. I had just lost everything. I stood there, frozen inside what used to be our home. The place where Sunday mornings smelled like pancakes and played soft jazz in the background. Now all I heard was the wind slipping through a half-closed window and the crinkle of paper in my hand. I sank to the cold tile floor, my back against the wall. I didn't even have the strength to untie my boots. 20 years in the military had taught me how to survive snowstorms, chaos, and war rooms. But nothing prepared me for a betrayal that came from the one place I never thought I had to guard, home. I'd heard stories from fellow servicemen, men who came home to empty closets and goodbye notes. I never thought I'd be one of them. Not with Sarah, not the woman who once whispered, "No matter how long you're gone, I'll wait." The last couple of years, I had been gone more often. Space defense strategies demanded constant briefings, emergency drills, interstate missions. I never realized distance was more than just geography. It crept into her eyes when I returned, the way her hugs no longer lingered, the way her voice felt colder, rehearsed. I remembered a call from 3 weeks ago. She'd said, "Everything's fine here, just focus on your mission." Her tone was too even, too flat. I sensed something was off, but I brushed it away. Because a soldier never expects the person he's protecting to be the one holding the knife. I walked into the bedroom. The closet was empty. Only one old jacket of mine hung crooked on a rusted hook. Memories hit like shrapnel. The day we picked that wall color together, the night she cried into my arms on her birthday, our laughter echoing as we hung Christmas lights. Now it all felt like a cruel joke. I called her number. It rang. No answer. I called again and again. Then the mechanical voice pierced through the silence. "The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." I opened my laptop, tried logging into our joint accounts. Password chain changed, bank access revoked, real estate records locked. Everything we built scrubbed clean of me. I hadn't just been left, I'd been erased. I pressed my palms to my face. No screaming, no crying, just a cold, creeping emptiness in my chest, something no satellite radar could ever detect. Sarah hadn't just walked away. She planned everything, and she made sure I wouldn't have a single thing left to hold on to. I don't remember how long I sat on that freezing floor. No food, no sleep, no lights. I turned my phone off and locked the world out. I ignored emails from my commander, missed calls from the base, even the knock of the mailman. I, once a commanding officer trusted with defending U.S. airspace, couldn't muster the strength to open my own front door. I thought I was unshakable. Turns out I was just a soldier who didn't make it home in time to save the war on his doorstep. The couch I used to nap on during weekends, gone. The kitchen we remodeled together, empty. Even the stupid ceramic mug she said was ugly but yours, gone. It was like Sarah had wiped me out of our life with military precision. By the third day, I was eating the last MRE from my field backpack, chewing on stale crackers, drinking cold powder mix coffee like I was still stuck in an Arctic outpost. But this time, the cold wasn't on my skin. It was buried in my chest. That night, someone knocked. 3 times. Steady, relentless. I dragged myself to the door, no words, just opened it a crack. It was David. "I flew in from Texas," he said. "Jesus, Mark, you look like hell." He didn't come with pity. He came with roasted chicken, bread, and a cold beer. We didn't talk. I just ate, like a man who hadn't had a real meal in days. "Sarah moved out in under 24 hours, David said finally. "My cousin works for the moving company. She recognized your wedding photo, called me. I tried reaching you. When I couldn't, I went straight to your CO and booked the first flight out." Still, I didn't speak. David leaned forward, his tone firm, not gentle. "I've seen this before, Mark. Guys who survive the battlefield but get ambushed at home. You sit here long enough, you'll lose more than a house. You'll lose yourself." Then he pulled a business card from his coat pocket and slid it across the table. "Jessica Rodriguez, attorney at law specializing in divorce, asset protection, and financial crime investigation. She doesn't just win, she dismantles the other side brick by brick. I think you're going to need her." I stared at the card. Something stirred inside me. Not hope, more like instinct. The reflex that keeps a soldier alive when the bullets start flying. The next morning I walked into Jessica Rodriguez's office. She was sharp, early 40s, no nonsense. She didn't offer empty comfort or false optimism. She opened her laptop, took notes as I spoke, then looked up with laser focus. "If your wife sold property and drained accounts without consent, we can track every transaction. And if there's evidence of a third party or premeditation, this isn't just divorce. It's organized theft." "I don't want revenge," I said. "I just want what's mine." Jessica didn't flinch. "Good, because this isn't about revenge, it's about justice." I left her office with a temporary case file, a checklist for evidence gathering, and for the first time in days, a sliver of fire in my gut. Not because I was hopeful, but because I realized something. I wasn't just a victim. I was a witness, a survivor, and it was time to strike back. Jessica didn't waste time. Within the first week, she had me gather every document I still had. Old bank statements, emails between me and Sarah, asset contracts, credit card reports, and phone logs. I thought I had nothing left. But every forgotten bill, every line of an old email, every receipt turned out to be a trail. She formed a small legal strike team, a civil investigator, a forensic accountant, and a former bank analyst who specialized in uncovering hidden transactions. Watching them work was like watching a covert unit crack open a financial terror plot. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a breakup. I'd been ambushed by people I once called family. The first bombshell dropped on day 12. Sarah had transferred over $120,000 from our joint account to a personal one, just 4 days before my Alaska deployment ended. That money was used to purchase a luxury condo in downtown Denver, but the property wasn't under her name. The buyer listed was Ryan Caldwell, age 33, CEO of a fast-growing logistics company. Tall, polished, a familiar face from news interviews praising bold young entrepreneurs. And, according to travel records, he had been vacationing in Hawaii with Sarah 2 months ago, while I was freezing my ass off training in Wyoming. Jessica showed me the pictures, Sarah and Ryan lounging at a 5-star beach resort, wrapped in towels, wine glasses in hand, smiles wide. Her face, the same one that once broke down crying when I called her after a near-death training accident, was glowing with joy next to another man. I didn't feel anger, not even grief, just a deep, hollow numbness, like someone had carved out the last of me without anesthesia. But it got worse. Using forensic recovery on Sarah's old phone, the team unearthed deleted messages, not just between her and Ryan, but with Mrs. Miller, her mother. Messages like, "Don't let him know until the money's moved. Ryan says we can close next week, just sign it. He's always away anyway, he doesn't deserve this. This is your one chance, Sarah, take it." Jessica looked at me, voice steady. This isn't just infidelity, this is coordinated fraud, with her mother acting as a co-conspirator. "That woman, she made me soup when I had the flu," I muttered. "And then helped her daughter rob you blind," Jessica snapped. "If we can prove Mrs. Miller's involvement, we're not just fighting divorce, we're preparing a civil conspiracy case." I leaned back in my chair, my vision blurred, staring at the ceiling. I had once led command during a cross-border missile drill. I'd deciphered encrypted signals, coordinated rapid response teams, but I never thought the most dangerous enemy I'd face would wear pearls, bake pies, and call me son. Jessica tapped her fingers on the table. "It's time to go deeper. I want full access to Ryan's business filings and tax history. If there's even a whiff of fraud, we'll have a nuke to drop." "You think he's hiding something?" She gave a cold smile. "Guys like Ryan, young, arrogant, get-rich-too-fast types, they always leave a trail. I don't need him to be guilty of everything. I just need one crack, and once I find it, he'll fall." 3 weeks later, a single-line email came from the forensic accountant to Jessica. Subject, "We got him." I was sitting in her office, sipping bitter black coffee, when she set her cup down and opened her laptop. Dozens of spreadsheets filled the screen, rows of expenses, fake invoices, shell company transactions, and internal wire transfers. "This is Ryan's nest," she said calmly, but her tone carried weight. "I don't follow," I said. "He's been using his logistics company to generate fake operational costs, invoicing non-existent services, and funneling the money into personal accounts. Some of those transfers go straight into Sarah's name." My chest went cold. "You think she knew?" "Maybe not all of it, but she's definitely not innocent. The asset transfers into Ryan's name were just the surface. What they've been doing is money laundering, or at the very least, serious tax fraud. And now we have proof." She tapped the screen. "This alone is enough to file with the IRS. If they confirm the pattern, this case isn't just about divorce anymore. It becomes a federal criminal investigation, and if Ryan is indicted, any assets linked to him, including what Sarah received, can be frozen." I exhaled, for the first time in over a month, not out of despair, but something else. Justice was shifting. Jessica looked at me, eyes sharp. "Now you decide, Mark. We can drop this evidence into divorce court and watch them sweat, or we can go straight to the IRS and light a fire under them. If it were you, what would you do?" She smiled, cold, calculated. "I'd give them a choice. Walk away with nothing and disappear, or burn in federal court." I nodded. Ryan thought he was the predator, but now he's the target, and for the first time I'm holding the trigger. The first hearing was scheduled for day 61, since I discovered I'd been betrayed. In the weeks leading up to it, Jessica and her legal team worked like they were preparing for a military op. Every line on every bank statement, every timestamp on deleted messages, every signature on a property sale document, it was all sorted, compiled, and weaponized. The difference? This time I wasn't wearing a uniform. But make no mistake, I was going to war. "You don't have to speak," Jessica told me calmly. "We'll do the talking. Just stay steady. Look them in the eye." And then they walked in, Sarah, Ryan, and Mrs. Miller. Sarah glanced at me. Her expression wasn't angry. It wasn't loving either. It was something else. Uneasy composure, like someone trying not to panic while the ground shifts beneath their feet. Ryan wore sunglasses indoors, ridiculous, and set his briefcase on the table with trembling fingers. Mrs. Miller kept her chin up, but her lips were tight, and she couldn't hold my gaze for more than 2 seconds. Jessica began. No fluff, no pleasantries. "Your Honor, this is not simply a contested divorce. We are presenting evidence of unlawful asset transfers, violations of marital financial agreements, and most notably, indications of organized financial fraud." She laid it all out, the wire transfers, the romantic getaway photos, the signed deeds with forged timing, all of it, while I was deployed on military orders. Every one of these actions was committed while Major Westbrook was serving his country, and most importantly, Jessica's voice dropped just enough to cut through the room. "We've submitted these documents to the IRS. The air shifted instantly. Ryan leaned into his attorney, whispering fast. Sarah sat up straight, eyes wide. Mrs. Miller's jaw tightened like steel. Jessica pressed on. "The opposing party can either agree to return the assets and resolve this peacefully, or continue denying the facts, in which case the IRS will take over." Silence. A long, heavy silence that stretched for nearly a full minute. In that moment, I knew one thing with certainty. They were rattled. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to slam my fists on the table or point fingers. The truth was enough. A ticking grenade placed gently on the table, and Jessica, with a voice like ice and precision like a scalpel, had just pulled the pin. The game they thought they controlled was beginning to crumble in front of their eyes. By the second day of the hearing, things were cracking. Ryan and his attorney had requested a recess to review new evidence. But we knew what they were really doing, buying time, trying to patch a ship that was already sinking. That morning, the courtroom was more crowded than usual. The media had picked up rumors of financial fraud. One reporter even stopped me in the hallway. "Major Westbrook, do you believe Ryan Caldwell will face criminal charges?" I didn't answer. I just looked into the camera and smiled. Inside, Jessica delivered a fresh report from the IRS. Improper tax deductions, shell companies, and a trail of suspicious transfers spanning 18 months. "We now have probable cause to believe Mr. Caldwell has engaged in tax fraud totaling over $1.2 million, she said, calm and lethal. The defense stumbled. Ryan shot up from his chair. "This is ridiculous. I didn't know about any of this. I have an accountant." "Yes," Jessica replied smoothly, "and that accountant signed these documents. We have a sworn affidavit. He's cooperating with the IRS." The room went still. Sarah leaned toward her mother, whispering. Mrs. Miller, visibly agitated, began snapping at their attorney. Then it happened. Ryan exploded. "This is a setup. She planned this," he shouted, pointing at Sarah. "She told me to move the assets. She said it was legal. It was her mother's plan, all of it." The courtroom erupted. The judge banged the gavel for order, but the damage was done. The facade had crumbled. The alliance on their side had shattered in front of everyone. I didn't say a word. I just watched as the people who tried to destroy me one by one turned on each other, as their lies unraveled and the truth, calm, quiet, and inevitable, rose to the surface. Jessica leaned toward me and whispered, "It's over, Mark. Starting today, you're not the abandoned one anymore. Ryan would face a second court, this time federal. Sarah would have her finances re-examined, and her mother might hear a knock at the door from federal agents any day now. I walked out of that courtroom, head high, shoulders back. I didn't win by seeking revenge. I rose, because I was done being afraid. 3 weeks after the hearing, Ryan Caldwell was arrested at his company's headquarters. Federal agents walked in at 8:00 a.m. sharp, warrant in hand. By 8:07, he was in handcuffs. The footage of him being escorted out, tie askew, eyes darting, was all over financial news within hours. Young CEO behind multi-million-dollar tax fraud scheme. From startup star to federal inmate, the fall of Ryan Caldwell. Divorce scandal exposes dark money web. There was nothing left for Ryan to hide. The IRS confirmed the fraud. Shell companies falsified invoices, hidden income, asset transfers under aliases, including Sarah's name. His company's bank accounts were frozen, major contracts pulled out, the business collapsed in under 2 weeks. Sarah didn't walk free either, though she claimed she had no knowledge of the fraud. Financial records showed she received money directly from Ryan, used it to buy property, and signed at least 2 documents tied to fake transactions. The family court ruled she had committed gross violations of the marital agreement and engaged in willful asset concealment. The judgment was clear. All assets Sarah acquired before the divorce were to be seized or reimbursed. She was denied any financial compensation from the marriage. She was ordered to pay my legal fees and placed under financial supervision for the next 24 months. As for Mrs. Miller, my former mother-in-law, she wasn't charged with a crime yet, but she was subpoenaed as a key witness in the federal case. She was also named in a civil suit for manipulation and aiding in the concealment of marital assets. People in her social circle, real estate agents, charity board members, dinner hosts, began distancing themselves. The cocktail parties, the elegant fundraisers, all evaporated. And me, I received a letter from the court confirming that all property unlawfully sold was either returned to me or financially compensated at market value. But what I felt most wasn't about money. It was about dignity. It was about getting my name back. I, once whispered about as that poor guy whose wife ran off, was now spoken of with something closer to respect, not because I struck back, but because I didn't fall. A fellow officer called me and said, "I've never seen someone walk through that kind of fire and come out this clean." I smiled. Not a triumphant smile, not even a proud one, just the quiet kind, the smile of a man who stood in the storm and never laid down. I walked out of that courtroom in silence. No applause, no victory anthem, just the echo of my own footsteps across the marble floor. But deep down I knew it. One chapter of pain had closed. And what awaited me beyond this point wasn't judgment anymore. It was choice. I returned to the house, my house, the one that had once been sold behind my back and legally restored to me. It was nearly empty inside, no furniture, no fake memories. But somehow that emptiness felt like freedom. I stood in the middle of the living room, a room that had once held silent dinners, tired apologies, and the smile I used to love. Now it was filled with nothing but morning light streaming through clean windows, and a silence that felt sacred. I made a decision. I wouldn't keep anything. I didn't buy back old furniture. I didn't try to restore what had been. I started over, literally. I repainted the walls, replaced the carpet, bought a small, simple table and 2 chairs, just enough. On the shelf, I only placed the books I genuinely wanted to read. And on the wall, instead of a wedding photo, I hung a world map and a single quote: "The wound is where the light enters you." Rumi. I didn't need anyone to tell me I had value. I requested a transfer to a training division. No more deployments, no more sleeping in barracks or packing last-minute bags. I became an instructor for junior officers, Young recruits walking into the Air Force with bright eyes and untested hearts, and I taught them not just tactics. I taught them the battles that don't make it into war rooms, the kind you fight in silence, the kind you don't always win. One afternoon, after dismissing a class, I drove out to a wide-open field on the edge of town. There was nothing there, just sky, wind, and space. I sat in the grass, cracked open a cold beer, and looked up, not thinking, not regretting, just existing, and realizing I was still whole. I don't know if I'll fall in love again. I'm not rushing it. I've learned how to live alone without being lonely. I take morning walks, cook dinner for myself, read to jazz music, and sometimes write short journal entries like, "I didn't think of her today." I laughed when I saw Ryan's mugshot on TV. I've stopped blaming myself for trusting too deeply. Eventually, I understood that forgiveness isn't about excusing someone else's actions. It's about freeing yourself from the prison their actions put you in. So I forgave, not because they deserved peace, but because I did. Near the end of the year, I received an invitation to speak at my former base, an event honoring outstanding service members. I almost declined. Then I didn't. That night, I wore my cleanest uniform. I polished my old medal. I stood on that stage, not to boast about rank or missions, but to tell a story of endurance, of quiet resilience. When I said my final line, the room went silent. I used to believe betrayal was the end of everything, but it was only the one-way ticket that brought me home to myself. The spotlight dimmed. I smiled. I didn't need anyone to understand. I didn't need them to believe. All I needed was to know who I was and that I had survived.